So welcome everybody. I'm now going to hand over to Professor Dame Jane Dacre, who will be well known to many people in this room as the past president of the Royal College of Physicians and her many other national roles, her review of the gender pay gap in medicine, and as a professor of medical education at UCL. Today, Professor Dame Jane is going to be introducing us to UKMED and the possibilities arising from UKMED, and a little bit of an introduction to the UKMED stream we have as part of the conference this year. So without further ado, let's get cracking, and I'll introduce Jane.
Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you, everybody, for getting here, which was fun, wasn't it? How many buses went past you? A lot went past me. And you know, they don't even look at you. They're like waiters. They just sort of look straight down and drive past. And you're thinking, what? Hang on a minute. I've got somewhere to... Anyway, well done, everybody who actually got here. And welcome to everybody for the first collaborative conference, really, with UKMED. So I'm going to be talking to you about UKMED. And I'm delighted to see, actually, some of the usual old suspects in the audience. So there are people here, this is for the young people, who've been around in medical education since before medical education research was invented. So it's actually fantastic to see everybody here and to see how far it's come. And you know who you are, all of you, old lags. Some of you are in the cheap seats up there. But we ought to start off by saying thank you to those people who made all of this, the culture of all of this, worthwhile. So I want to say thank you to the old lags first. And then also to welcome younger colleagues and say, because of the input of senior people, some of whom are doing things like running workshops later on today, the future is really bright for medical education. And what I want to do in about the next 10-15 minutes or so is to show you how UKMED is contributing to that bright future. So before I start, I need to thank everybody on the UKMED Advisory Board, because I am a recent attendee. I was actually around at the beginning when it was being thought through, but went off to do other stuff. And now I've come back, and UKMED is absolutely thriving. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So it's a bit like the story of Cinderella. So it's nearly coming up to Christmas time. But medical education research has always been, in my view, a Cinderella subject. It's becoming less of a Cinderella subject. But what I would like to do today is to outline for you how UKMED can actually be thought of as a pumpkin coach. Because what it can do is allow educators and people who enjoy scholarship in education to go to the ball. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be focusing a bit more on quantitative research, and that's because within medical education, quantitative research has been more difficult for people to achieve, and that's where UKMED comes in. But the things that people will be familiar with are these kinds of research methods that people in medical education have used and have started to use. And of course, they all play a part. But why am I interested in this? Why do we need to think bigger? Why do we need to be more strategic? Well, yes, absolutely. The success of today shows that medical education research is developing fast. But I'll just take you back to a conference that I went to a few years ago. Now, some of you may or may not know that I started life as a rheumatologist. Rheumatologists are small round cell people. They're very interested in little bits of research and in things like biologic therapies and what have you. And I went to a rheumatology conference, and there was a talk from somebody who was nearing retirement, maybe a bit like me now, and his main focus of research was that he had successfully got a paper in Nature, and this was for finding an RNA virus in a goat's kneecap. And he'd spent the rest of his career trying to find a disease that was associated with this RNA virus in the goat's kneecap, and there wasn't one. And it made me think, what is this all about? So I was there as the sign, and I'm sorry to say this, but I am a born-again feminist, but I was there as the last-ditch girl at the end of the agenda to talk about education, because they had to put that in because there was a bit of scholarship necessary, and they had to do education too. And what I noticed was that everybody slept through the goat's kneecap, and everybody woke up and had an opinion on medical education. And it seemed to me, hang on a minute, where are we going wrong? So the next thing that I learned about medical education is when I was doing the gender pay gap review. And because it was a review, it's a long story, but my old adversary, Jeremy, who's now the Chancellor, which is probably a good thing, were fighting over the medical workforce during the junior doctors' strike. And he asked me, because I think he thought it was a poisoned chalice, whether I would chair and lead the review into gender pay gaps in medicine. And what that showed me was that if you have access to administrative data sets, you can do really, really powerful research. So I worked together with my colleague Carol Woodhams, and we did some stonkingly huge data set work on hundreds of thousands of doctors, all from their data in the electronic staff record that is held by the NHS. And we're able to show some really, really powerful results. And we were able to show, for example, that the gender pay gap, so that is the difference in hourly pay between men and women expressed as a percentage of men's pay, brackets, any deniers it is different from equal pay, we were able to show that that was 17% overall. So that's big. That's huge for an individual professional group like medicine. And what we have been able to show recently is since the work we've been doing, it's come down and it's now about 12%. So using large administrative data sets, you can actually show really serious things. And that's where my interest in UKMED came. Now, we have enormous data sets in medical education because probably over-assessing, but we're constantly checking up on how medical students and medical trainees are doing, and we're recording that data. But we ought to be making the best use of those data sets for the recipients, for the students, for the trainees, and also the patients. And actually, we may have a breakthrough. We may be able to really change the world by doing this. There are some bumps in the road. There's GDPR. There's the law, which is really annoying, especially when half of your work is covered by the GMC, because they're a bit obsessed by the law for some reason. There's privacy. There's accountability. So this is all very, very complicated. And at the end of the day, we have to protect all participants. However, because of some pioneering people who are in the audience today, UKMED exists. And it's been going properly since 2015. I pay credit to Steve Thornton, who was the first chair. So far, we have 31 publications in peer-reviewed journals. Everything's on the website if you want to have a look. And this is us. So cast your mind back and think, okay, what is the equivalent for the people who used to be researching viruses in goats' kneecaps? And the answer is, it's the UK Biobank. So UKMED is our equivalent in medical education to the UK Biobank. They look at physical measures, they look at genetics, they look at physical activity, they look at all of the things on this slide, and they relate that, and they allow that data to be used as a resource. So it's a database and it's a research resource. And that's what we need to be doing with UKMED for medical education research. And if we do that, we are really powerful because we have big data, and like with the gender pay gap, you can show big changes and big results. This, of course, as with everything, is a collaboration between a large number of organizations which create and collect data about medical students and about trainees and about doctors and about exams and about how they're doing and when they're not doing. So all of that data is there, and there are extraordinary measures gone to clean up those data, those pieces of data, and to work with organizations to make that into a format that can be useful for people to apply to do large-scale research using medical education administrative data sets. So I'm sure that probably everybody in the room is involved with one of these activities. So we start in medical education terms in the cradle. So that's as people come in to medical school, as they're selected, as they apply, as they go through their medical education, as they come out the other end, as they go into training. And we're actually now looking at the further end of the spectrum. Well, starting in 2015, we're sort of grandfathering in, and it's taking a while to get everybody there. So what we do is provide data to deliver evidence-based policy, to find out if the right people are coming to medical schools, to look at success factors, to explore doctors' career choices, to look at key factors associated with profession, etc., etc., etc. So there's a huge amount of stuff you can do. So there are huge benefits in using UKMED. So can anybody spot the fairy godmother? Am I allowed to name and shame you? It's Daniel Smith. So Daniel is there to help people access the data. So when Cinderella wants to go to the ball, and when you need a pumpkin coach, here he is. He's the guy that helps you to work through it. And he does it brilliantly, and he's been doing it for a long time. And he allowed me to put his mugshot on the fairy godmother. We're working on the wand. But there is no charge to access the data, but please let us know what you want to do. And your outputs will be reviewed by a research group, a number of whom are in the room, who will help you to make sure that your publication is of good quality and publishable. You can bring your own data and merge it in, and people have started to do that. There are some bumps in the road because of GDPR and all of those worries that people have about sharing big data sets and anonymity, etc., etc. But studies have started to link their questionnaires about other things to medical education output scores. So there are some things that you need, and the team at the GMC, led by fairy godmother Daniel, are able to help you. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of big data sets that have shown interesting results. I will let you read that for a second. Here's one. Here's number two. So the numbers are big, okay? So don't worry about the goat's kneecap brigade. We now have potential large administrative data sets that are organized that can be used to show really big things in medical education research. And the reason why it's important is because it has impact. So Chris and I were involved in the UCL impact statement for the REF, and the reason why that was taken seriously by our own university, who are not really that interested in supporting education. They're better now, but at least they've finally got a career track and a way for medical educators to be promoted, which they only got recently. But what you can do is show impact with large data sets, so you get the power to research educational outcomes. So the opportunity is there for everybody in the room, even you guys in the cheap seats, to work with us to do that. So medical education research is actually something that's really taking off. And now, everybody, it's our chance to go to the ball. So enjoy the day, enjoy the workshops, and think big, because the future is very bright. We will get our prince, if that's what you want, of course. And, have to be careful about being gendered about things these days, don't we? So enjoy the day, see you all around, and thank you so much for coming.